We're actually just going to sing to you.
I had a very negative experience with a talent show. I'm not going to tell you that story. When I was in 6th grade. Oh, this isn't group therapy? Okay. All right, so we decided when I came, is this the time when I talk about
Yes,
okay.
yes it is.
I used to be the head of the upper school and middle school. Is this good? Is this a good distance? Yeah. And I actually asked, a lot of people think I was like kicked down to the lower school, like it's a demotion or something. Actually, it wasn't a demotion at all. I asked if I could go to the lower school because they had had some changes in leadership over time, and I thought after my 8 years in the upper school that they really benefited from that continuity. Like it made a huge difference. Everything, over time, enrollment went up every year. The trust level was more present. So I said, what if I went to the lower school? I'm a clinical psychologist. And so I know a lot about child development, but I hadn't worked with little kids before, except my own. But that child development stuff and all the family stuff that I learned, really came in handy. Anyway, so I thought I was qualified, not uniquely qualified, but qualified to do the lower school in terms of knowing younger children and their needs. But more importantly, I knew I was qualified as a leader, because that's the only thing I can ever say that I feel like an expert in. So, came down here with my leadership ability and relied on Sandra for the things I didn't know about running a elementary school classroom. So, when I came, I knew all the holes in the middle and the upper school, all the things that weren't going well in the lower school by the way the students were in the middle and high school. For example, grammar. I knew that grammar was not something that was being taught very well in the lower school. Now it is. We're starting a new writing program this year. And that's one of the reasons. So, what did I see in the middle and upper school with regard to behavior? I saw really terrible things. Our school got to be known by substitute teachers as a place where you don't go and teach because they treat you terribly, the students. Also, when new teachers came, the students had this saying when I first came. Remember, now this is 11 years ago. But the students had a saying, we're going to teach this new teacher the TVT way, which meant that they would make all the rules and the teacher would listen. They almost had the attitude that the teacher had to earn their respect instead of having like an immediate respect for an adult, which I may be old-fashioned, but I think that children should respect adults just right off the bat unless they're proven that you shouldn't respect them. But at first, that should be the demeanor of a child. And I don't know, maybe that's old-fashioned, but I brought down here a manners curriculum, which is still happening, and it's really awesome when you see it. And this love and logic, which is what I use for my own children, which is a parenting, what do we call it? It's a philosophy of parenting, and I thought I was going to try to make it work for school because it really helped me with my parenting. And then I found out they had a whole curriculum just for schools. So the first day that I came into the school, we brought a very expensive speaker from Love and Logic, came and trained the faculty for a full day. And then every year, Amanda refreshes them. Amanda, what did you do to learn Love and Logic?
So I went to a 3-day training in Denver, which was extremely intensive, and it was incredible. It was one of the best trainings I've been to. But we ate, slept, breathed Love and Logic for 3 whole days. So today, you're just going to get kind of a taste of 2 different skills. Otherwise, it would take me 3 days to walk you through everything. So you might walk out of here wanting more, and hopefully we can do another one.
If there is a significant, a real critical mass that want to go through the whole curriculum, we are willing to do it. pick like a Thursday, every other Thursday, and we'll just keep going through the year. But we're not going to do it for 3 people. And we're so happy that all of you have come.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
okay then.
All right, you can go to the next slide. Okay, so the primary focus of parenting and teaching with Love and Logic, we want to increase the odds that kids are going to make good and healthy decisions when no one is watching them. Because our kids are not going to take us in their pockets throughout life. Do I need so much?
Okay. And when Dr. Roth and I were preparing for this, we were thinking about, we want to prepare them for high school, for college, for adulthood, to do the right thing, to make healthy choices when they don't have people over their shoulders telling them what to do. So that's really what is behind Love and Logic. Okay, quick little overview of the philosophy, and then we're going to get into 2 skills, so you guys can leave here with something tangible, I hope. So children are given choices and the freedom to make mistakes. If you were in our workshop yesterday, we talked a lot about how one of the hardest parts of parenting is standing back and watching our kids fall and not interfering and rescuing them no matter our pain, because it's really the mistakes that teach our children. We want the falls to ensure that our kids are learning something. So it's definitely one of the hardest things to do, but that is one of the main parts of the philosophy. Now, adults are also going to demonstrate empathy and compassion. We're going to talk about empathy in a little bit. Children need to take responsibility for their actions, meaning we want kids to know that their choices, they are the ones who are in charge of their choices, and their choices directly affect their lives. And then, again, children learn from the consequences of their mistakes. And the relationship between the child and the parent, the child and teacher is paramount. You can give as many consequences as you want to your child, and it might not work if the relationship is not solid. So the founders of Love and Logic, I remember in the conference I went to, they were like, don't let parents fall into the consequence trap, or teachers fall into the consequence trap, where you're constantly trying to give bigger and better consequences. They're not going to work if the relationship is not solid first. So just something to consider.
We watched a video of a very, very seasoned teacher. I think she did a TED Talk. And I remember one sentence of hers, and she said, I never met a student that learned from a teacher they didn't like.
There are really never going to be enough rewards or consequences if there's no relationship.
Yes.
Sorry, will we get an electronic copy of this?
We
Is that
can.
right?
Yeah, so you don't have to take
Oh,
pictures.
everybody's taking pictures.
I know. Sorry, should have said that before. Good question.
Instead of, I don't want to take pictures, I would rather get an
Just
electronic.
absorb.
Well,
Oh,
that's
sorry.
everybody.
Oh, thank you.
Great. Okay.
Thank you.
So, guideline number 1, here's the first skill that we're going to learn today. So, adults set limits in loving ways without anger, lecture, threats, or warnings. Some people are like, that's my whole repertoire, what do we do? We're going to teach you what to do. Instead of giving orders, you left that one. Instead of giving orders, which tend to encourage battles with our children, we use enforceable statements. So just look at the difference between these 2 statements. The first one, don't talk to me in that tone of voice. You can say that to your child, or you can say to your child, I'll listen as soon as your voice is calm. What's the difference between the 2? Anyone?
I think honestly, like us learning what the right thing to say is, because I think as adults, that's our first reaction is to say, don't talk to me like that.
Exactly.
But I think if you're telling me the right thing to do for my child is to say, once you relax, once you calm down, I'm more than happy to listen. Now I will know, because now I'm aware of
But
what I
I'd
need
rather
to
you
do.
not memorize that sentence. I'd like
But-
you to understand why they're doing
Right.
it.
Go ahead.
Positive and negative.
Okay, that's part
One
of
is
it.
saying what you want, and the other is saying what you don't want. So
Okay.
getting folks what you want them to do.
Okay.
That's what you want them to do.
I think one's an order.
What is it? Or one you're commanding
One's an
them.
order and one's just a calm request.
Right, because when you make that order, you can't control what they're going to do. There's a pretty large probability that they're going to keep yelling at you still.
Come with me now. Come.
They're not going to come. So your kid learns right away that your words have no meaning. It's true. So when you say, I'll listen as soon as your voices come, you're saying I. And you are the only person who you can control in this situation. So as soon as you do the first one and say, don't talk to me in that tone of voice, and your kid keeps on talking to you like that,
That masking tape.
you lose your credibility right away. So if you change it, if we say what we are going to do, we have a much higher probability that we can actually reach our kids because we're not commanding them. We're gonna actually watch a video that explains this really well and gives some examples because this is a hard skill to pick up initially. So,
Even though it looks really simple.
it takes a lot of practice. This is one of the founders of the program.
What's the bottom line about setting limits? This is what Love and Logic teaches. Never tell a stubborn kid what to do. Why is that? Well, it's to do the opposite, right? What do we do instead? Describe what we're willing to do or allow. I'll say it again. Never tell a stubborn kid what to do. Describe what you're willing to do or allow instead. And we call that the enforceable statement. Yeah. I'll listen when your voice is calm. I argue at 6 a.m. on Saturdays. That's a fun one. Okay, I take kids places in the car when I don't have to worry about them arguing with each other. Yeah. Did you know that I charge $2 a minute to listen to whining? Yeah. Hey, I wash clothes that are in the hamper. Yeah. See, I'm talking about me. I'm setting limits by describing what I'm going to do. Why is that so powerful? Why do we do that to keep our yes, yes and our no, no? Because what's the only thing that I can actually control? What I do. And there are days when that's hard for me, right? But see, if I'm always telling the kid what to do, I'm always focusing on what I can't control. But when I'm saying what I will do, I'm focusing on what I can actually back up. So I can make my yes, yes, and my no, no. And if you go to loveandlogic.com, we've got all sorts of handouts there. You'll find lists of enforceable statements.
We have those for you.
Now, do you think it'd be wise for a parent to get those handouts and memorize all those enforceable statements? Do you think that would be helpful for you? No. Mm-mm. See, do you think it'd be a lot more helpful if you just picked one or two and you experimented? Do you think that'd be better? Or do you think it'd be even better if you just started with one? What do you think? Yeah. Well, do you think it'd be worthwhile right now if I could give you kind of a generic or a universal one that would fit a whole bunch of different issues? Yeah, would that be helpful? Okay. So let's lay it out here. And it can start in 3 different ways depending on your personality. It might start like, you may. You may. Or it could start like, I allow. I allow. Or it could start like, feel free to. Feel free to. So you may, or I allow, or feel free to. Now there's a blank. Yeah, we just draw a blank right there. We're going to plug whatever we need to plug in there. And then it ends like this. As long as it does not cause a problem. As long as it does not cause a problem. You know, some people like to add after that, for anyone in the known universe. So, how about if you yell out garbage or gold? We'll say gold if my word is gold, or garbage if my word is garbage. And let's practice here and see how this works. Feel free to have your friend over as long as it does not cause a problem. Gold or garbage? Gold. Let's say the friend is being obnoxious, or they're having disagreements with each other. They can't get along. What's that called? It's called a problem. And what happens? The friend goes, you may drive my car. As long as it does not cause a problem. Let's say the car comes back and the needle is on E. What's that called? A problem. What happens the next time the kid wants to drive the car? Oh, yeah. See, your brother and you may watch video games or play video games and watch TV as long as it does not cause a problem. Yeah. And let's say they refuse to turn it off the next time you ask. What's that called? Problem. Yeah. See, I'm thinking about a lady, and she decided to get a little creative. She had these two teenage boys that were always fighting with each other over the TV and the remote control. One day she went to them and she said, guys, you may have a TV and all the video games in the home as long as it does not cause any brain damage. Yeah, she changed it up a little bit. Any brain damage. And they looked at her and they said, Mom, TV doesn't cause brain damage. That's an urban legend. And she says, I'm not talking about the TV causing you brain damage. I'm talking about all the brain damage I get from listening to you guys fight and then you arguing with me when I ask you to turn it off. Well, they thought that was pretty lame. And she just said, good luck. Well, it was only 2 days later she went to them and they'd been playing for a while and she walked over and she said, guys, I'd really appreciate it if you shut that off. How did they react? Oh man, you distracted us, Mom. I was at the top level, man. We're going to start all over it. Yeah, Mom. Couldn't you see we were playing? You messed it all up. You know any kids who actually talk that way to their parents? Would you like to hear a statement you can use just in case? Well, you can share it with the neighbors who have these problems with their kids, okay? Yeah. And it sounds like this. No problem. Let's all practice. No problem. So the kid says, I'm not doing that. Let's hear it. No problem. But no. No problem. Or, you're mean. I'm not doing that. No problem. I shouldn't have to do that. The only reason you had kids is make them into a slave. No problem. Okay, that's the first part. By the way, who are you talking to? Yourself. Yeah, you're saying to yourself, no problem for me. Big problem coming up later on for this kid. And then you might add on to that, no problem. I love you too much to fight with you about this. I'll take care of it. Yeah, no problem. I love you too much to fight with you about this. I'll take care of it. Well, that's exactly what she said. She said, no problem, guys. I love you guys too much to fight with you about this. I'll take care of it. And they kept playing. And they actually thought they got away with it. Yeah. And the next day they came home from school. And where the TV used to be, there was a nice little table. And it had a picture of the family on it. And they said, Mom, you're crazy. She said, not actually, I have brain damage. Apparently there was only one person in that family that didn't get over it. But we don't need to talk about that right now. But what's the key? It's remembering that we don't have to do something immediately, right? And can we be pretty successful if we keep our statements enforceable and we always remember that if we have to, we can look at the kid and say, no problem. Love you too much to fight about this. All day. Now, if you use that a couple times, do you think those words all take care of it? We all gain special meaning in your home.
Okay. So we are going to give you guys a whole list of these so you can pick and choose what works for you. This is something that our teachers use in the classroom also. Every time I go in to teach a lesson in the classroom, I say, I only call on students who are raising their hands. So our teachers are using these, so they actually really work. I don't know, if we want to hear some feedback about the video.
The power of common language, the reason you guys are sitting here is when students start to hear the same thing at home and at school, it's really transformative. There's like nowhere to move. So, it's nuts. What did you guys think about that?
I don't know if I can do that, what that mom did, being honest. What about you? Does this seem realistic, unrealistic? Does it seem like too big of a consequence for kids arguing? Really love to hear what you have to say. Yes, Mark?
I wouldn't, right now, at this stage of my life, I would turn off the television or the video game, whatever they were doing,
Similar.
and I would take away the remote, and I'd walk away. And I'd be like, that's it. And then I'm sure somebody would have had a meltdown, and I would have said, I'm
Someone's
sorry.
following you, probably.
Yes, someone, yes. And I'd say, sorry, this is a consequence. I would say this is a consequence of the behavior. I asked you to turn it off, you didn't listen, I'm sorry. It's gone. And that would be it. And I do that. I don't get it. But then I get, the problem is the subsequent reaction. Well, can I earn it back? How long are you going to take it away for?
Well, they do need to know that.
Right.
I mean, I think it's important, what if the consequence came at you and you didn't know how to get what you wanted back or how long it was going to last, that's too hard. I think it's okay to say, you know, I don't, when there's a whole week goes by without any arguing with your brother, when I'm around, the TV will come back. Did you notice what I did? When, you know, when, did I do it wrong? When a whole week goes by and you guys aren't arguing, the TV will come back. I will bring the TV back, yeah, I didn't hear the eye there, yeah, okay. Yes?
I think the question is not, you can do that once, but it's important to be consistent. And do that not 1 or 2 times, it should be for, you know, first of all, you and your spouse should do the same thing, and second, it should be,
Absolutely. You should be a team.
But
Forever.
once you follow through on something.
I'm gonna do the story, yeah, I'm gonna tell you a story. Yeah, the beauty of all of this is that it really works so effectively. You don't necessarily have to do it again and again and again, like take the TV away once a week, because it packs a pretty big punch. So, I'm gonna tell you a story about my son Jake. Forgive me for anyone who's heard this story, but when my son was somewhere between 2 and 3, okay? And for those of you that are 4-year-olds, 4. But he was little. He got a book or a series of books every night before bed. It was part of our routine. It was like anchored in. It was like a whole thing. It was like bath time, get into your pajamas, pull down the curtains, get into bed. We're going to pick out a book, out a book. It was like the routine. How many people here have routines like that? Okay. With the book? Yes? Okay. So, was never really much problem with the book. The problem was after the book, when you have to go to sleep, I'd hear, I don't know why my kids thought they couldn't leave their room, but it was good. That they thought that, both of them did. Mommy, I'm thirsty. And then, Mommy, I have to go to the bathroom. Mommy, I didn't eat dinner. I'm hungry, Mom, I'm hungry. You know I didn't eat dinner. I'm hungry. I can't go to bed hungry. You always say that. Okay, this would go on for ad infinitum, you know, as in, you know, delaying the sleep time. So, I was a student of love and logic, so this was planned with my husband and I. Thank you for bringing the team approach. We decided, we knew that it was going to happen the next night, because it happened every night for weeks and weeks and weeks. So we made a plan. It's called the delayed consequence. Because we knew it was going to happen, we kind of set him up in a sense that we decided that we would tell him that if, I always have to say this right, I said something like, Jake, You will get a book tomorrow night if you don't do all of the delaying and complaining afterwards. But, this was right before I left the room. But, if you do all the delaying and complaining, I'm so sorry, but I'm not going to be able to read you a book tomorrow night. Well, 5 minutes later, Mommy, I'm thirsty. So, we did it. So my husband and I looked at each other and said, tomorrow night, we're going to have to not do the book. We told him. So, we didn't do the book. The next night, he was in his pajamas, the curtain came down, and he's like, I'm picking out these books, Mommy. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry, Jake. We're not going to be able to read you a book tonight. Why? Because remember last night when I said, blah, blah, blah? Well, biggest meltdown since, I don't know, some volcano erupted. Okay, and it went on for a really long time. He cried his soul. I mean, and for me, it's like, books, oh, I'm making this associating book with a consequence. I mean, I had every thought about why this was a terrible plan and I should never have done it. But I was rewarded the next night when, as he was getting ready for bed, he said, I'm not going to ask for anything afterwards. I'm getting everything now. You know? And he went and got his water, and he did it. He said, because I don't want to go through that again. So sometimes it takes twice, and occasionally it takes 3 times, but it never takes more than that, because they remember from feeling the pain. That's the pain of the consequence. Does anyone believe me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Nod your head if you think you might be able to do this. Just because it's so easy, there are certain things they do over and over again. Yes.
A question about the
Yeah.
meltdown.
Yes.
What did you do while he was melting, and how long did you let him melt?
I would do just like the Ferber. I would go in every 10 minutes and say, it's time to go to bed. Let him know I was there, and walk out of the house.
So you would have allowed it to continue for 2 hours?
Yes,
That's
it
what
probably
took?
did. It did. It was
Okay.
probably about an hour and a half.
So I used this method. You introduced it, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay, so when you had the speaker come, and I got the book, and I read it all, I don't have these problems. I really don't. My kid's the easiest kid on the block.
You mean you didn't have them then and you still don't?
No, I had them then, but I
Right.
don't have them now. And it really works great. I have to say, my son spends some time with my mom, and she uses the old style of you'll do it or else, and he looks at her like she's crazy. I mean, Lily goes, why does she boss me around? We just talk, and we talk with respect, and it really works.
It's what you're doing is you're becoming credible. The problem with most parents forever and a day is the threatening without the follow through. I need the mic for that. When your word is credible, when they believe you're going to do it, it's a whole other world.
I walk in and say, turn off the video games, it's dinner. He goes, okay, I'm coming. I mean, he might say once in a while, could I have 2 more seconds? Or could I finish this one? Yeah, sure. I'm not going to argue with you if you're going to ask me for permission for something. But,
Right.
yeah.
Raise your hand if you Ferberize your child. If you don't know what that means, is you let your kids cry in order to fall asleep and went in every 10 minutes. Very few. Okay, right. So how many days did it take before your kid was sleeping through the night? 3. My kid was the 3rd.
No, mine was a little more stubborn, but yeah.
Yeah, so this is the same exact theory.
No, but this is easier.
It is, and
Yeah, it is easier.
Yesterday we talked about how control is
Kind of one of those basic human needs. So when you are giving your child an order, maybe like what, your son's grandmother is doing, kind of taking away his control. And as soon as you do that, you have a kid who wants to kind of fight back. And all that happens is a power struggle. When you are saying what you will do, you're kind of giving subliminal choices. You're saying, I take kids to the park who clean their room. You're giving them the choice to either clean their room or not. So you're giving them a sense of control at the same time. Exactly. So that's pretty amazing. Go ahead.
So I do this thing, I was here last week, so I sometimes do this, but I also do something else when I'm not sure I should do. Try this out. Sometimes I give the consequence, and then he's, he hasn't done whatever, so the consequence, and then you take it away. But then I give him the opportunity to, so let's just say I'm taking away his dessert or something. I don't know, whatever, they're not getting dessert. And then I might, if I'm feeling bad, then I was like, unless you can earn it back. by good behavior or whatever the.
Would it be that night that you get the Zoom back?
Sometimes, like this morning, for example, a lot of times I'll give them a little tiny treat if they cooperate getting into the car in the morning, because it's so hard to get in there. And if they've lost that treat, sometimes I'll say, you can earn it back if you get into your seat really fast or whatever.
So let me ask you this. Is this hard? Do you find it hard?
I don't find it hard, but sometimes sometimes I'll feel like maybe I was too hard on them, like maybe I was expecting too much that morning because I was grouchy or whatever.
No, but is the process of what you're doing, I'm gonna take dessert away?
It was
and then-
hard at first to kind of figure it out, but I think I'm pretty good at it, at doing that part.
It's gonna be, what I want to say to you is it could be easier
Yeah,
if you just stuck with your work.
just stuff with it.
Because then
That's
they
the time I
would
really-
learn from that consequence and not do it anymore. You wouldn't have to do these little micro corrections.
And also, I think when you give kind of a reward, you're not teaching your kid self-discipline in a sense. You want them to do something for the sake of doing it.
Yeah.
If you're giving them a reward for it, it just takes away.
Yeah, and I also asked, there's the other question about whether I should, in the morning, be giving them a treat to, you know, or else can't
I mean,
do
just,
together.
what you're doing is saying that, do you want your kid to feel good when they accomplish something?
Yes, I don't want to keep giving them candy.
But you're basically saying that it's so difficult for you to get in the car, I need to reward you for getting in. You know, I mean, what are you gonna do when you have to study?
But what would be the consequence then? Because the reason I
You
do
don't
this,
go
I
where
can't figure
you're
out
going.
consequence.
That's what I want to. You don't know.
The hard part is you have to go to work or school.
Yeah, sometimes you
That's
have
the hard part.
we've had parents who've had to not go to school. And the meltdown for that, all of a sudden they want to go to school like it was like.
Then they're here on time.
But it's better to practice on the weekend when you're going to the park instead of do the.
I'm worried that people won't want to go to school.
It's better to practice on the park and make the mistake affordable.
And you
They
can
wanna go
take
to
away
school
from
anyway.
it.
I was just gonna say, she's almost there, I would just practice the if part, because one of these days, they're not gonna, the if isn't gonna be enough of a threat, and then you're gonna have to follow through. So you practice, I do this with the teachers all the time, because we love that if, and I practice with them all day long. Sometimes we quiz each other. You can take that, if you get in the seat, and you can turn it into an enforceable statement, which is what they were saying. I will start the car when you're in your seat.
Also
So you
something,
can practice flipping them.
There you go.
yeah, that was
I will
great.
do this if you.
Because one of these days, they're not gonna do the if, and you're gonna be backed up in that corner of whether you're gonna follow through with the threat or not.
Right.
But there's a technique in there that when they don't want to go to school and they end up staying home, like they stay in their room. Isn't that what he goes over in the book?
Right. He
And
goes,
it's
it's not
like
supposed
they
to be
get to
fun.
party, they get to make their own lunch,
Yeah,
they have to stay in the
exactly.
room, they get their lunchbox, you just, you know,
Exactly. It's not a fun thing.
it's
to
not a
say.
great day. You can't ask me for
We've
anything.
had to do that because the kids are late.
Just one more thing. I remember one of the founders in my conference saying how he had to set something up like this with his kids, and he did it at Chuck E. Cheese because he hated so much. So he knew in his head that he would want to leave when he got there. So he said to his kids, "I take kids to Chuck E. Cheese, you know, when they treat other people with respect and don't cause a problem." So he was like, as soon as I saw my kid like bopping someone else and pulling someone's hair, I was like, oh no, we have to leave. And it was so easy for him to go because he hated that place. So just that was something that stuck with me.
And so do you notice the, oh God, Jane, I feel so terrible when I'm going to have to do a book, when I'm going to get to do a book tonight. I really do feel terrible. That's the important part we're going to get to. You have a question, Allison?
Well, I was going to say a couple of things, and then different parenting program that I dabbled with a little bit of mine, she talks about when, then, which I think is a great, rather than if then, it's when then.
Yeah, I like
So it's like affirmative, and it's like when you have done, what she says is that you have to make sure that they care about the then. So pick your then carefully, but it's as if like when you have done this, I will do this. So it's again putting that, like we were saying, like putting that choice for them, but it's all
Giving them
affirmative.
control, giving them choices.
Right. And then going to the morning thing, I think, and this is certainly not foolproof, but I think having like a list in the morning, like asking because what do we need to do in order to be ready on time?
See, I love
So
that.
that when you are ready on time, then you can get to school on time. In theory, they don't want to be late to school, and of course things happen, whatever.
They
But,
don't. And we're going to make it worse for them too.
you know, but I think like a lot of the practice and prep and like you said, like
right now in kindergarten, when they graduate, the number one thing bosses will be looking for are excellent problem solvers. So include them in your problem solving. Someone said yesterday, one of her sons wanted to go to the park and said, can we go to the park right now? The park was across the street. And she was just going to go, no, can't you see where I'm company and I haven't even gone shopping yet and I still have to cook? But instead she said, let's think about whether we have time to go to the park. What do we need to accomplish? And the kids started saying, I'll help you with that, I'll help you with that, you know, and became part of it. You know, you have to chop carrots, and of course, when kids help cooking, it's like cooking 2 times, but it's good. It's their time with you, and that's what they want to be doing. They want to be part of something.
So we're going to talk a little bit about consequences and empathy, because our time is running out. So actually, if you could go to the next one. Okay, so as you saw in the video, she delayed her consequence when she took that TV away. She didn't go and get the TV right away and remove it from the house. She waited. And that is a main technique that they teach in Love and Logic, and we teach this to our teachers as well. Because it's interesting, I think we're all taught as teachers, as parents, that if you don't give a consequence immediately, it loses its value. But that's actually not true. What happens, it is, it's true for mice, dogs, pigeons, but not really true for humans. Because if a child is old enough to remember a promise, they are old enough to remember what the consequence is connected to. So the example I always give is, if on a Monday you say to your child, I'm taking you out for ice cream on Thursday, and ice cream is their favorite thing. Are they going to remember on Thursday that they're going for ice cream? Exactly. So if they can remember, if they are old enough to remember a promise, they will remember why their action connects to the consequence. So in classrooms, in real life with parents, giving an immediate consequence usually causes more problems than it solves, because we end up most of the time saying, if you do this, I'm going to, and then you say something ridiculous that you can't follow through on.
Or you can't, then nothing comes out.
Right, or you're like, I have no idea what I'm going to do, and you completely lose your credibility. And that's the last thing we want to do. So it gives us time, it kind of protects us. It lets us take a break and say, I'm going to do something about this, but not right now, later. So we have time to think about the consequences.
Guy say, what did he say?
No problem.
No, nothing, no problem. We'll do this. The thing that whenever they would hear it, I'll take care of it. Thank you.
Exactly. So it gives you a break to kind of go and figure out what the appropriate consequence would be. Also, in the meantime, it usually leads your child to be thinking about things a little bit more. And the most important part of a consequence in Love and Logic is making sure that when you do deliver it, you are doing it with empathy.
I have a question. I mean, when you delay the consequence, how would you connect the consequence when you deliver it with the past action?
That's a great question.
Isn't that being kind of passive aggressive?
Okay,
Like,
great
it's
question.
okay, no problem, and then boom. To me, that's kind of a passive aggressive.
I totally hear you.
So, I mean, during all my life, I thought that you had to reinforce behavior by connecting the action with the
Think about my
consequence.
example with my son.
Days in line will disconnect those two events.
So remember the example with my son in the book? I reminded him, I remember last night when I said this isn't going to happen anymore. You have to, sometimes you do have to remind them.
You do.
And go back and just like recreate the conversation.
Exactly.
Before you leave.
Yeah, yep.
Like I remember another example of someone telling their child, if I take children who stay in their rooms at night to the park the next day. And then the kid ended up coming out of the room like 8 times that night. The next morning, the mom was like, oh, I'm so tired, you know. I really only take kids to the park when I get enough sleep. You didn't really stay in your room last night. So that was connecting the two things.
Yeah, I know what you mean about feeling a little slippery on that passive aggressive.
Me too.
But when it's delivered, it doesn't feel that way at all. Because it's the 99th or 100th time that you've tried to get your kid to do something. And it's fine.
And deliver it with respect, too.
Empathy.
So they learn that same way to talk back to other people, too.
Right. It's all in the way that you communicate it. And think about, between 70 and 90% of our communication is nonverbal. So if you are actually kind of exuding the fact that you're empathetic and you're not passive aggressive, they're going to get that from you also.
when the consequence is delivered. You can be the, I'll handle it, what you're feeling is passive aggressive. When you come back around with the consequence, you can be as empathetic as you want, because it's hard.
Okay, and then connect.
Uh-huh.
Everyone can read, I'm not gonna read this to you. What I like about this is the part where it says, our child's poor decision is the bad guy. Okay? The word consequence has a negative association, as does failure. Neither one of those are meant to be negative. I remember when I was interviewing a family for kindergarten, my first year before I was even in the lower school, and I said we're going to have a all-school discipline program, and she went, and I was like, did I say something wrong? And I realized that the word discipline for her sounded like we were going to be a military school. So I started to change my language because it seemed to offend people. The same as when I say we give consequences to students when they take missteps. It sounds like a horrible thing. So I wanted to bring home the point that consequences may feel terrible, they do, but they're one of the only ways that we learn. And the way I want to make this really clear to you is for you to think about things in your own life. So for a second, I want you to think about a time where you made a mistake, you know you made a mistake, and you got a consequence for it. Maybe your boss called you in and said, remember I told you not to do X, and you were on the red carpet. Or maybe you said something you really shouldn't have said to a friend, and they stopped being your friend. So just for a second, think of a time where there was a consequence for something that you know you did wrong. So if you're aware that you made a mistake, that's when you stop repeating and you feel that that's the reason you lost a friend or whatever. You stop repeating that mistake because the consequence is painful. So think about somebody getting fired. There's two ways to look at being fired. One is that damn boss, he doesn't know what he's doing anyway. And you can have lots of friends that support that and go, yeah, that guy really is nuts. And then you're off the hook. Everyone says, yeah, that guy's nuts, and God, I'm so sorry it happened to you, but it's all about the boss. Then you learn absolutely nothing. Or you can say, why did I keep doing that thing that he told me he didn't like that I did? And get really inquisitive about why he did do that thing that he said he didn't like. And really explore it and learn from it. This is exactly what we're asking our kids to do as their teachers, as their parents. When we give a consequence and it's clear that the student, I keep saying, the child made a mistake, you want them to reflect on the mistake so they don't do it anymore. But what parents do is they start to see their kids crumble and they rush in to make it better, like by saying, oh, the boss was crazy anyway, or that teacher doesn't know what she's doing anyway. When kids make mistakes, we want to take them away, and yet that's where all the learning happens. Raise your hand if you understand what I'm saying about a consequence that you've had that you've learned from. Okay. And it's awful, right? It is awful. And because we know it's awful, we want to take it away from our kids. But then we don't. We're robbing them of all the learning. And so we have this picture of a kid looking in the mirror. Amanda and I were talking, and the way we kind of thought about it is that consequences are when you come face to face with yourself and the decisions that you've made. And the way I had this image of parents standing right in between their kid getting face to face with themselves and interrupting that learning process. Does everyone Ours had one stay here. And so it is, when a mistake happens, you do have to look in the mirror. If you don't look in the mirror, you'll make the same mistake again. Speeding is an awesome example. You know, my son got a ticket recently, he's 17. And he's been driving like his grandma ever since. Because he is well aware of what, first of all, he worked this summer and he made $250 every 2 weeks. Guess what the ticket was? He had to work 2 weeks to pay off that ticket. In my olden days as a parent, I would have paid for the ticket and told him don't do it again. And he never would. So he's been driving like a grandma. And I don't know how long it'll last. I don't, but it did work for now.
Sandra, could you go back 2 slides?
Yep.
For a second? Thank you. I just wanted to reinforce how important the empathy part was, though, before you give the consequence, because...
Was I supposed to do that?
No, you were good. You were good. If you give a consequence with anger, your child is going to be so focused on your anger that they're not going to be able to go into thinking mode and think about what they did. Instead, they're going to go into that fight or flight, and they're not really going to learn that much.
That's like getting in between them and the mirror.
Exactly. So that's what that empathy does. Empathy kind of, you get to pause, your child gets to say, okay, this person is on my side, this person knows how I'm feeling, but this person's also going to hold me responsible by having a consequence. So, next one.
Did you want to get back to the other one?
No, this is perfect. So these are just some examples. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I'll let you know after dinner. And then making sure you follow through. I know you guys can read, so.
This is so sad.
The last one I love. I'm too angry right now. I make better decisions when I'm calm because we are modeling to our kids at the same time that when humans are angry, we sometimes make decisions that usually get us in more trouble than not. So.
It is definitely true that when you're angry, you're not at your best. Your brain your emotions are taking up all your brain's capacity.
And then the last one, when you insert yourself in between your child and that consequence, you'll usually destroy the value of the consequence. Actually,
Don't
Dr.
do
Roth.
things like explaining the value of the consequence. Now you're really going to learn. See what happens. Lecture mode. And I'm sorry, I hate to stereotype, but the fathers are really good at lecturing. No, I'm not looking at you. But it's true.
Right.
Women here, wives, am I right? So they go into lecture mode and they go on, and my kids will come to me and go, Daddy, he won't stop. He just keeps circling back around and around. They do like to hear whatever the genius comments.
The less you talk, the more they have time to think. If you lecture them, they're going to sit there and they're going to think about you lecturing, they're going to get angry, they're going to get annoyed. Give them the time to think.
And then who do they blame?
You. They blame
Instead of
the
themselves.
Exactly. And the last one. I know it is painful to give a consequence. As parents, we feel that pain, and that's why we give in a lot. But by doing that, you're really robbing your child of the opportunity to learn.
Is that it? I think so, actually.
Yeah, so I just wanted to encourage you guys to visit the website. There's also like little webinars you can do on the website.
And the Facebook.
Oh,
My
the
favorite.
Facebook.
There's these days,
They
there's
send you a tip a day.
these weekly and daily tips on Facebook, and it goes through the scenario, and it tells you which phrases to practice. I give it to the teachers all the time.
And there's CDs. I listen to them when I'm driving to school in the morning. And that kind of gets it into your head that way. The books are amazing. There's tons of them on different subjects. What to do when you're struggling with homework. Just take a look at the stuff. It's great.